Romaine, to me, especially in run defense, is beyond his years right now when it comes to the vision and reading offenses. And he doesn't just over pursue and he's not a gambler, right? I think he sees defenses right. He's a really good tackler. He's a really good blitzer as well. But that's what I see as a guy with as much as any linebacker in the country. He might be the best with it right now.
Hello and welcome to another 3-Maw Pod. No John or DY today, but in their absence, I'm joined by Dalton Wasserman, analyst and contributor at Pro Football Focus and co-host of one of my go-to shows during college football season, the PFF College Football Show, which is hosted by Dalton and Max Chadwick. If you're a college football fan, the PFF College Football Show is a must-watch. I would encourage all of you to subscribe to the show on YouTube at PFFCFB. As Max and Dalton preview and recap each weekend's biggest slate of games using analysis and data you won't find anywhere else. They just did a near 3-hour show previewing the entire Big 12 conference, but they also broke the videos out for each team on their channel as well. So if you're looking just to watch K-State or a couple schools, you can find those on their YouTube channel as well. Or if you're looking for the overall Big 12 preview and just want to listen to all of them at once and you got 3 hours of time, I would encourage you to do just that, because it is great content. And as I said, check it out during the season, off season as well. Love watching the shows and the breakdowns and the previews and the data that Dalton and Max give. Before we jump in here with Dalton, we want to talk and remind our listeners here at 3-Maw and KC Sports Network that we're hosting a watch party at the historic Holiday Distillery location in Weston, Missouri for K-State's season opening game versus Iowa State in Ireland. The doors are going to open at 10 a.m. Kickoffs at 11 a.m. Central for just $25. You're going to receive a welcome cocktail from Holiday Distillery, tastings of the Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur and holiday bourbons as well as food supplied from our friends over at Batchelder Family Farms. We're going to be hosting a live pregame show from the distillery as well as a live postgame show. The link to find out more and to purchase a ticket is in the description of the show. If you're 20 years of age and under, only $10 a ticket. And if you want to bring a child 5 and under, they get in free. They're all welcome. We welcome families to attend the event and the watch party. We're going to have a lot of fun week 0. And Dalton, speaking of that week 0 game, you probably have to go back to 2019 when Miami and Florida played each other in a week 0 game to find a bigger game that weekend than what we'll see in August 23rd in Ireland. Just how excited are you for this year's matchup between the Cyclones and K-State to kind of kick off college football season?
I mean, it's really exciting when you look at the two teams being, in theory, prime contenders right at the top of the Big 12 for the last several years. And I think for this year coming also, and just the contrast of these two teams, it makes for such an interesting matchup. I know Iowa State's won the last 2, but you look at Iowa State and kind of the pass happy offense, and they're built to pass and stop the pass. And then Kansas State is built to run and stop the run. It's one of the hardest games to me every year in the Big 12 slate to predict because the two teams have such different styles, but to have a game with such massive ramifications lead off the college football season in the most wide open conference in the country, I think it's a spectacular game to start with.
What's your gut kind of tell you? Like, how do you break down that game? I was going to get to this later in the show, but I'm just curious, Iowa State, John Heacock's 3-3-5 defense, always tremendously difficult. Last year, they struggled against the run, which was unique challenge to them, but they had injuries at linebacker. They've lost their top 2 stud wide receivers, but Rocco Beck's back at quarterback. Like, how do you kind of just evaluate that game, and what is it your instincts tell you, the data tell you about how that game will break down? I know you guys will have a preview on it later, but maybe give us a high-level overview of what you see there.
Yeah, it's a tough game to break down because honestly, the last 2 years on our show, I've picked Kansas State to win the game based on their run game and everything that obviously 2 years ago Will Howard could do, and last year Avery Johnson, and I got burned on it. I think the big question for me throughout the entire game, and I should say the entire season for Iowa State in particular, is the loss of Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel at wide receiver, right? Rocco Beck at times can be a bit of a roller coaster. The ball security can get a little bit loose, but the last 2 years, Higgins and Noel were the constants in this offense. It's not not that they can't run the ball too with Abu Sama and Carson Hansen, but Higgins and Knoll were really their biggest matchup problems. They both had over 1,000 yards last year. They were two very different types of receivers, and obviously they'll still get to play together with the Houston Texans. But that's really the question for me, is that Kansas State last year, their pass defense was a little more suspect than the run defense, but they don't get quite as tough a matchup unless we see Iowa State, somebody else at wide receiver, step up with those two gone.
Yeah, K-State held teams last year 3.8 yards per carry, made a big jump in terms of the rush defense, but the secondary gave up a lot of big plays, as you know, Dalton, and they're going to be breaking in a lot of guys in the secondary, especially a corner, Jacob Parrish, Marquis Siegel, and those guys now gone as NFL draft picks. Hey, let's talk K-State specifically for a bit, and then we'll get to a little Big 12 football as well. But just in general, what are your thoughts on what you've seen from Chris Kleiman's program over the last few years?
Look, they've proven they're consistently going to be solid contenders near the top of the Big 12, right? Obviously, was it 2022 that Will Howard and that team won? They won the Big 12 title over that TCU team, and they've proven over and over that they're going to be in the mix, right? Even last year, they were in the mix really until the very last week of the regular season. They just need to be able to have a little bit of balance on their team. The fundamental things that they do, the foundational things they do, run the ball, stop the run, they're among the elite teams in the country. It's just adding a little more balance to both of those elements. I think especially offensively, right? Because I know Avery Johnson for their system is fantastic, but there comes 2 or 3 moments during the season where you need to drop back and throw the football and succeed, right? He did it against, I remember the Colorado game, the big throw to Jace Brown, but you need that a little more often. Sometimes you need your quarterback in the last 4 minutes of the game to drop back and throw the football, and they needed more depth at receiver, and hopefully a couple of transfers are going to fix that too. But I think Kansas State, it really, the difference between a Big 12 title and just being in contention just comes down to a handful of moments throughout the season. They're going to compete at least near the top of the Big 12 every season under Kleiman.
I'm going to make this our top storyline of the show, which is brought to you by our friends at Elenco, the remodeler of choice throughout Kansas and Missouri. Elenco, a family-owned company of K-Staters, providing all your home improvement needs, from bathroom remodels featuring Kohler walk-in showers, window replacements, siding, sliding glass doors from Sunrise Windows and Doors. Elenco only installs products that have proven track records of success. Go to elencohome.com for more information, including details on how to contact them about remodeling needs for your home. Whether you live in Kansas City, Topeka, Wichita, or a small town in Northeast Kansas, Elenco will come to you. Go support them, a tremendous company owned and operated by terrific K-Staters. Dalton, I've heard you talk about Avery Johnson on the show quite a bit over the last year or so. When you look, you cover the entire sport and look at data across the sport, like what type of jump is reasonable to expect from someone with Avery Johnson's talent, who's now going into his second year as a starting quarterback at the Power 4 level?
I think, again, he kind of embodies the entire Kansas State team, right? What he does well, run the football, run their play action concepts, especially when they're ahead in games and they can leave the full playbook open. He's an excellent quarterback in that sense for their offense, but the jump needs to come when they fall behind in games. Let's say they're down 7 in the fourth quarter. They need to drop back. The non-play action passing grade drops, I believe, by around 20 points in our PFF metrics. He threw 17 play action touchdowns last year, whereas he threw only 8 last year without play action. So the jump needs to come. And I'm not saying he needs to go back, drop back in the pocket, be Joe Burrow or something like that, right? Or Patrick Mahomes for you guys down there in KC. But he really needs to at least be a respectable passer in those situations. And I know, the receiving core wasn't all that thick last year. Jace Brown was the only guy with at least 400 yards, but there's going to come a moment where you go, okay, I need you to take a 5-step drop. I need you to read a defense, and I need you to make the right throw, right? That's where the improvement for Avery has to come. He doesn't have to be one of the elite drop back passers in the country, but an improvement to at least a middle of the road one would go a long way towards K-State winning a Big 12 title.
Would you like to see him use his legs more as well, Dalton? I mean, he had 605 yards last year, which is obviously a good number for a quarterback. But with his skill set, I think he could be even more dynamic. Like if I were to tell you that his longest rush last year was 33 yards, which is what it was, and if you would have told me that going into the season, I would have been surprised by that. Like I was probably looking for a few more explosives in the running game. We know he got banged up as well, but what are your thoughts on his legs and how he uses them as well with his game?
Yeah, something that gets underrated is late play decision making, right? And I think you see at times with Avery Johnson where he does want to stand there, and there's times where he forces the football to his first read. I think he has to understand his speed and just how dynamic a weapon he can be. He can make plays that very few other quarterbacks in college football can make. It just comes down to decision making. Instead of forcing a throw, get north and south, run for the first down, and live to play another down, right? I remember, I forget which game it was, but when he had, when he's scrambling behind the line of scrimmage 20 yards and he took that safety. Was that against Arizona State, I think?
Iowa State, yeah.
That was the Iowa State game? It's a decision like that. Or there was another game, I think it was, I want to say against Arizona, when scrambling around before halftime and killing the clock and giving away points, right, that you should have had down in the red zone. It's decisions like that where it's, late play decision making. Don't force a throw or throw the ball away even. Use your legs to pick up a first down. And his speed on it, we saw the year before when he was kind of doing the Wildcat thing in place of Will Howard at times. He's got enough speed to 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown runs. He's the fastest guy in the field some days when he's out there. So I think it really comes down to decision-making and understand how much a weapon he can be when he gets north and south with the football.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of 4 or 5 guys on the team, Dalton, that hit the 23-mile-per-hour mark in the testing they do, again, this offseason. And so there is an explosive dynamic to his game, and hopefully we're going to continue to see that evolve in his decision-making in the pocket and knowing when to take off and run in certain situations as well. I hear you guys talk about K-State and the ability to run the football, as well on the show. And obviously they set a school record last year, 6.1 yards per carry for a single season. They were tremendous. DJ Giddens was really good. And really, K-State has had 2 running backs over the last 4 years that have hit 1,200 yards or more, Dalton, and have been tremendous for this program with Deuce Vaughn and DJ Giddens. I'm curious on the next guy. Like Dylan Edwards is that guy, Joe Jackson as well, but Dylan Edwards is the guy with the recruiting pedigree, a lot of hype. He's got a year in the program now after coming over from Colorado. What are your thoughts on his game and the type of player he could be in this K-State offense?
I think one of the differences with K-State this year, and I really like Dylan Edwards a lot. You could see he was talented even when he was with Colorado. They just didn't know how to utilize the run game as much. And now last year, the role that they put him in where he can be kind of in the mode of that Darren Sproles or Deuce Vaughn, where he's the undersized guy with the electric feet that can do things all over the field, right? He's going to be the best receiving back on the team. I love when they use him in the slot. You get all that jet action going with the power options and everything on the inside, and then he's flying around the corner. I think Dylan Edwards is more in that vein, but honestly, I think more than maybe even previous years, I like this group, right? I like Dylan Edwards and the speed and the versatility a lot. I like Joe Jackson, and even we saw it in a small sample last year, his ability to get north and south. And I want to throw a third guy at you, Antonio Martin, the transfer from Southeast Louisiana. He's not a blazer like those 2 guys, but he's a big 220-pound powerful back that's going to run between the tackles. I think you're going to see all 3 of those guys succeed this year in very, very different roles. I think Martin's going to play a factor also, especially late in games. You've got this big frame that's just hard to tackle. It takes 2 and 3 guys to tackle him. So I think more than anything this year, yes, Edwards may lead them in rushing because right now he's the most experienced player, but I think this is a group, a trio especially, that can succeed with different roles and make this offense even more versatile.
I'm glad you brought up Antonio Martin. Like, how did I hate to put you on the spot here, but you may not have this handy, but like, how did you guys kind of grade out that acquisition that K-State made late in the kind of the portal process? They wanted a guy that could go north and south, be a little bit more physical at the position. And they pick up a guy like Martin who rushed for over 1,200 yards, Southeastern Louisiana, that had hit the portal a couple of times. Actually, I'm just curious, like, what, if you have it handy, like, how did he kind of evaluate in your guys' system?
Both of them solid. Martin, I know, over 1,200 yards at Southeast Louisiana last year, and I'm going to check the grade because I think it was high 70s or maybe hovering around 80, which is a very solid mark. You're talking about, okay, if that's your starting running back or at least one of your running backs. Yeah, 79.9 rushing grade. Solid stuff. Broke 66 tackles on 233 carries, so well over the 25% mark that you talk about getting into, good tackle breakers, right? So again, I think what it is, he's efficient, he's powerful, he's 220 pounds. He's of the 3 guys, he's going to be by far the least likely to break off a 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown, as long as he had one run of 58, one run of 57 last year, but only one other one over 30. So he's not the blazing speed guy. And even that's at the FCS level where you could tell that. But I think late in games, I think goal line work, and I think even just having him on the field, let's say he's in the backfield and Edwards is taking that jet action in the slot, you give yourself two different types of backs that makes, it gives defenses difficulty in trying to match up personnel. If we've got a bigger back and I want a third linebacker, okay, cool. But then you got this other fast guy, and you've got even Avery Johnson as an option threat flying around the corner. So I think having different types of backs too is going to help him a lot. But Martin graded out really well. I think that's a good add, especially for someone who's just going to be part of the rotation instead of the feature back.
Yeah, and he'll take a few hits off of guys like Dylan Edwards, and not hurt his explosiveness by being able to pick up hopefully those 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s, and some of those right up the A-gap power runs.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible. And they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
I got to ask you about Austin Romaine. I mean, you guys at PFF have him not only as one of the top graded linebackers in the country, but as the top defender in the Big 12 conference overall heading into this season. What traits stand out to you when you watch Austin Romaine on tape?
I think to me, there's just certain times you look at linebackers and you know when certain ones are just out there with their athleticism and they're just running and chasing in the football. And you know the guys when you watch, especially the end zone cam of them, the guys that can really see the field properly, right? They can read offensive lines. They can read guards pulling and get to the proper landmarks, right? Romaine, to me, especially in run defense, is beyond his years right now when it comes to the vision and reading offenses. And he doesn't just over pursue and he's not a gambler, right? I think he sees defenses right. He's a really good tackler. He's a really good blitzer as well. But that's what I see as a guy with, as much as any linebacker in the country, might be the best with it right now. The vision and his ability to read offensive lines and then to read into the backfield to get where he needs to be is just spectacular. Look, he was the second highest graded linebacker in the country, highest in the Power 4 last year, and the biggest part was his run defense. I don't think you could ask for anything more out of a run defender, a pass rusher, and even in coverage, 72.6 coverage grade. That's respectable enough for a linebacker. He's one of the best in the country, no doubt, and I think it's his vision and intelligence that really set him apart.
I'm curious on this, Dalton, because he's only 2 years removed from high school, right? He's going to be a true junior. He didn't even redshirt his first year at Kansas State. He was the lowest ranked recruit in the recruiting class when he came in as well. I've seen him on draft radars already after this next season, his third year in the program, when he is draft eligible. Like, where do you kind of perceive that? Like, is this a guy that you think could leave Kansas State a year early and go pro and be a top 3-round type pick as a linebacker? Where do you kind of foresee his NFL prospects?
I absolutely think that could be the case. I mean, you're talking about a linebacker that sure looks like a top 100 guy. In our initial big board, actually, we had Max and I built the initial big board, and Trevor Sycama's adjusting it as we go. But our initial big board, we had him number 47. And if he's going to be a second-round pick at linebacker, which, unless you're a special football player, generally is the ceiling, right? Obviously, Jahad Campbell snuck into the first round last year. We've had first-round linebackers, but they're more rare than they used to be. If he's going to be somewhere in the top 50 to 60, I would really think he's going to think about he's going to think about coming out, right? He's just such a good run defender, and to me, it's about the other parts of it. If he still shows that he's at least a respectable coverage guy and he's a two-way guy that you just don't see as much at linebacker anymore, then he could really think about it. Honestly, I think he's easily one of the 5 best linebackers in the country.
It's great stuff. Well, let's transition to a little Big 12 discussion. Like, what are the other teams you're really high on in this league heading into 2025?
That is the $1 million question, because I'll say if anybody has any more accurately predictable way to predict the Big 12 this year, you're going to make a lot of money in the sports books. But no, I mean, you look at last year's champion Arizona State, and they lost Cam Scadaboo, obviously, but they still have Sam Levitt. They have Jordan Tyson, and Kenny Dillingham's building a great culture there. Texas Tech, I'm going to tell you something. They have a boatload of talent. The job that they did, the money they spent in the transfer portal this year, that's going to be a really fun team to watch. As long as Baron Morton's a little bit less of a roller coaster, Texas Tech is really talented. They're fun to watch. I'm expecting a big bounce back from Utah as well. I really like their transfer quarterback, Devin Dampier, coming in from New Mexico behind that offensive line and his ability. He's one of the best running quarterbacks in the country. You're going to see Utah and Kansas State be the 2 premier rushing football teams in this conference. I think K-State, that's always the case, but I think Utah's in for a bounce back as well. Those 4, to me, seem like the prime contenders, but you also have Kansas, you have Iowa State, you have even a TCU and a Baylor who feel like dark horses with their offenses. So it's as wide open as everybody says it is. But I think Arizona State, Kansas State, Utah, and Texas Tech, those 4 stand a little bit above the rest for me right now.
Are you buying into the hype around Baylor, Dalton? It feels like there's been some projections. I think they could end up in the Big 12 championship. Obviously, Sawyer Robertson comes back, kind of an unknown heading into last year. He wasn't even expected at one point. Daquan Finn was the guy everybody was talking about, right? The Toledo quarterback transfer. Sawyer Robertson jumps in and had a hell of a finish to the season last year. But I'm curious for your thoughts on Baylor, and because K-State goes to Baylor.
They're intriguing, and I think they're of a very similar style to K-State, where I know everyone's going to talk about Robertson and his arm, but I'm actually more intrigued with the backfield and the ground game with them, with Robertson himself with a big 6'4" frame, Bryson Washington back there as well. They've got a really dynamic backfield. They can stop the run well with Jackie Marshall and those guys up front. But for me, I need to see Baylor take that hot streak over a whole season, right? They started off poorly last year, and then once Robertson got in a rhythm, then they looked good towards the end of the season, and they're pass defense as well. It's kind of the same thing as Kansas State, where especially a pass rush, I'm not really sure where it's coming from for Baylor right now, and the secondary has not been great. So I think Dave Aranda has some holes to fill on their defense, but I put them more in the dark horse category. If we see them, honestly, they've got a fascinating week 1 game as well, hosting Baylor. For both of those teams, I feel like they're in the same spot where I'm like, maybe you could compete in your conference at the top, but I really need to see it first, right? Instead of, waiting to the second half of the season to get hot. So I think that's one of the most fascinating games of week 1 to me, is Baylor hosting Auburn. But certainly they're in the mix, but we got to see Robertson hold it for a whole season.
You mentioned Texas Tech, and obviously they spent a boatload of money, right, to land talent all over the field. They boosted their offensive, defensive lines. They spent big there. But I'm curious, are you surprised they didn't look to upgrade at quarterback with Baron Morton? Like, I don't know how Baron Morton grades with you guys. I can't recall, but, and it's just he's been so injury prone, it feels like, throughout his career at Texas Tech. And so it's a little surprising to me that they spent so much resources on their football team, but they're going to rely on everything's going to be built around Baron Morton and his health and being able to stay on the field.
Yeah, I think Joey Maguire really at quarterback wanted to trust a veteran presence who's been there for a long time. And you look at some of the surface level stats and you go, okay, 27 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, 20 big time throws, and 15 turnover worthy plays. That's okay. Pretty much even on the aggregate in our metrics, he's a solid quarterback. The issue is how you get there with him is week to week. You don't know which Baron Morton you're going to get. You could get a guy who's one of the best players on the field any given week, and there are times every year, certain games where he just implodes, right? I think about, last year there was the Arizona game, even though they won, he wasn't great. There's a lot of games in our system where he's either above an 80 to 85 passing grade or below like a 55, and he's really giving you issues on your own offense, right? So I think for Baron Morton, it's about consistency. And I think consistency in big moments, to not turn the football over, to not put the ball in danger, to not force too many shots downfield. So I can't say I'm too surprised that Maguire and the staff didn't go away from him, because he's been there for a while and they want him to lead it. And he did have, on the aggregate, again, a pretty good season last year. There's going to come certain moments in these big games where it's, okay, can you keep your composure, especially under pressure, and not turn the football over?
On the subject of quarterbacks, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Dalton. Like, how would you rank kind of the top tier in order of quarterbacks in the Big 12?
So I think Sam Leavitt is the clear number one for me. I think it depends then what you're looking for when it comes to the skill set, right? Because if you're talking about runners, I really like Devin Dampier. Obviously, you have to like Avery Johnson as a runner. I think, to me, the underrated guy is probably Josh Hoover at TCU. I really like what he did with that offense last year. He makes quick decisions, especially striking down the middle of the field. Robertson's obviously at least in the top half of that mix. He's a good football player. We just need to see be a little more consistently accurate. But I think I would say what you're getting, to me, out of Dampier and Johnson in the run game. And then the next best passers, you would go some order of Josh Hoover, Sawyer Robertson, and even Jalen Daniels from Kansas. Last year was such an enigma for him, because in the first 3 quarters of games, he was grading at an elite level, and it would crash in the fourth quarter, and they would lose a 1-score game seemingly every week. So Jalen Daniels as a passer is still in that mix. Rocco Becht, I should throw in. To me, Rocco's in that second tier, little ball security thing with him too. But I think the elite, to me, Sam Leavitt stands above the rest right now. I think he's the one guy right now. It's like a proven, hey, I think that could be a top 5 prospect, top 5 quarterback prospect in next year's draft.
Yeah, you mentioned Rocco Becht. A couple more, I'm going to get you out of here, Dalton. But I do, on the subject of that, because K-State obviously, again, opens with Iowa State and Ireland. And when I watched Rocco Becht last year, I felt like he had more turnover-worthy plays than what we saw the year before. And so I'm curious how he may be graded out in the system, because like the K-State game last year, for example, when K-State went to Ames, like I felt like Rocco Becht got away with 4 or 5 different turnover-worthy plays where a ball might have been batted up in the air and K-State just wasn't able to secure it. And now he's losing his top 2 wide receivers in Nolan Higgins, as we already covered. He's going to be relied on more than ever as the pressure is on him. He's a talented player, but like I'm wondering what type of step he makes this year, because I felt like he took a little bit of a step back just from watching with my own eyes last year and got away with a few more mistakes than what we saw the year before.
No, you make a terrific point, because in that game, the K-State game, he did have 3 turnover-worthy plays that he got away with, and for the year he had 20, which is a lot for a full season. You're talking about even a guy who played in 14 games, 20 turnover worthy plays is a lot. And there are moments where it's just, again, late play decision making. You can't make those, especially in the flatter areas of the field. You can't make those throws late down there, because those are the ones that turn into pick sixes, right? I mean, those are some of them can be very, very problematic and turn a game upside down. I remember even a close win that they had over UCF, and there was just some decision-making even in that game that was like, dude, what are we doing, right? But I think when it comes to losing Higgins and Knoll, that's the biggest X factor in their entire season, I think, because you have 2 of the best receivers in the country. They both went in day 2 of this year's draft, and now those guys are gone, and you've got unproven options. Is it going to be somebody like an Eli Green? Are they going to get more out of their tight end, Ben Bramer? Are they going to run the ball more? Because Rocco Becht, he took almost a 10-point dip in passing grade last year, but he made up for it by using his legs more often and scrambling for more first downs. So I think that's an element that I did like to see added, but he needs to be safer with the football this year, because he's not going to have Higgins and Knoll to bail him out of some of those 50-50 balls.
Absolutely. That's tremendous stuff. All right. Well, hey, I'm gonna put you on the spot again. And I know we're 3 weeks out from the season starting. We haven't watched any of these teams play yet, but as we sit here today, Who are you predicting to play in the Big 12 championship?
Oh man! I've been stalling. This is the one I'm going to be stalling until the last minute on, even with our and my mind may even change because we're going to do our conference predictions sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think, man, oh man, because I think Max Chadwick is leaning Texas Tech. To me, it's just week to week. I don't know if I can trust Morton. I'll be honest with you. I'm the same way with Avery Johnson, where I need to see him just in those big moments drop back. I'm very torn between Arizona State repeating or taking Utah. I really like what Utah has. The fact that they got Devin Dampier is a big move, and I think it fits their team perfectly. It's man. It's between those. I'm gonna for the moment. I'm gonna tell you what. For the moment, I think I'm gonna take Arizona State and Sam Levitt. That might change in the next 2 or 3 weeks, though, because this is the conference it's the hardest one. I feel good about Clemson in the ACC. I feel pretty good about Penn State in the Big Ten. The SEC is there. I can narrow it down to like 2 or 3 and figure out the schedule. The Big 12 is so hard, but I think I'm coin flipping right now between ASU and Utah.
I saw a data point from Kelly Ford, advanced analytics guy, and I think he had like all these teams kind of jumbled together and what the analytics say and the projections of like 5.8 wins for the top Big 12 teams. And obviously it's probably unlikely that the teams in the Big 12 championship finish 6-3 in the league each, but it kind of just shows how cluttered it is and how close everything is. I think Bill Connolly had written that 43% of the league's games last year were decided by one score. And
I think even I was looking at the sports, but one of the sports books the other day, nobody had shorter odds than plus 550. And I think it was 2 teams with 550, one with 600, one with 700, 2 more with 900. I mean, it is as wide open as it was last year. And you remember we had a 4-way tie for first place last year. You throw your hands up this year and you go, I don't even know. Like last year, say in the ACC, right, where it was like, okay, couple of teams at the top, and then Clemson they won the Big 12, they won the ACC, and this year you go, okay, they're the clear favorite. And I like Arizona State a lot, but some of these other teams may have bridged the gap. And even we got to remember sleepers like Kansas, who could bounce back from a lot of one-score losses. Even I've talked to some Colorado people recently that say, look, you're sleeping on this team just because those 2 guys left. I know it's something Deion Sanders has even said, but this is as wide open a conference as any in the country. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
Well, and just hearing you talk about the league, like I've seen some people say, like for Kansas State, actually, like they like the schedule, they like the way it sets up, but like I think the schedule's pretty darn hard. I mean, they go to Baylor, they go to Utah in November. Like just hearing you talk about Utah and how much you like them, they play Texas Tech, they get them in Manhattan, they get TCU in Manhattan, but they play a lot of the top tiered teams. It's really Arizona State is the only one, out of that top echelon that they really avoid. They got to go to KU, which has been, they've escaped 2 straight years, and what the metrics and data would probably tell you they should have at least lost one of those 2 games by the odds. So I think the schedule is pretty hard for Kansas State. And then obviously they move a home game for Iowa State to Ireland, and it kind of neutralizes that aspect too. So it's going to be fun. And, I'm eager to see the season and eager to see your guys' work at PFF and must-watch content. Where can everybody find your work, Dalton?
So the PFF College Football Show on YouTube, Max and I are always writing articles and things like that. We've got written versions of all those previews on the website right now, and even our premium articles right now. I should make point of through August 7th, we're running a sale on a PFF Plus annual subscription. It's normally $120. Through August 7th, it's $80 right now. So if you want to see the premium content, the grades for yourself, fantasy tools, betting tools, all that stuff, it's on sale right now through August 7th.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully everybody will want to check that out. This is great content. And again, the show, I really do mean this. It is fantastic content. I appreciate how you guys give respect to all sorts of college football teams here in the Midwest and Big 12 territory as well. And you guys do not ignore the Big 12. So I would encourage any Big 12 or any K-State fan to check out all the great work that you and Max do over at PFF on the college football side. So Dalton, thank you so much for jumping on with us. And I appreciate everybody for listening to another episode of 3 Mock.